Congratulations to Patrick, who just won a free copy of Edward Van Halen, a definitive biography, a book written by Kevin Dodds, who is in the studio with me tonight. You may know Kevin from his local bands Steamroller and Red Line Riot, and he's just published this biography about Edward Van Halen, which is pretty revealing and enlightening, and all kinds of stories I'd never heard before. You said I read that you researched it for about a year or so. You had like over 1,000 sources.
Yeah, and it was a little more than a year. I guess the funny thing is, my buddy Mike said, he goes, hell man, you could just take your emails that you've written on Van Halen over the last couple of years and paste them together and have a book.
Put that in a book. Is that Mike, your bandmate in Steamroller?
Exactly.
Yeah. Pretty cool that you guys still have your original lineup.
It is, yeah. And it's, Mike and I have known each other since we were in the 3rd grade.
Wow.
Yeah, and we actually, there would be no Steamroller if it wasn't for Eddie Van Halen. And I say that without flinching, as it is an absolute fact. When I say there would be no Steamroller, what I mean is that in 1984, Mike and I went and saw Van Halen at the Summit in Houston. They sold out the Summit 3 nights in a row.
I believe it. That was when they were really peaking.
Yeah. And the amazing thing was that in doing my research, I realized that was the 11th to last show that the original Van Halen lineup ever played.
Mm. So it was a religious experience for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I again you use that term, and I'm telling you that is exactly how I felt about it. It was like an awakening, if that's what you call a religious experience, an awakening, and that's what I had. The one thing I couldn't believe about the concert itself was after they finished the first song, which was Unchained, which
I'm playing, by the way.
Yeah, which just melted my mind. The applause from the audience was the loudest I've ever heard, the loudest I'll ever hear. But it was nonstop. It didn't have a decay.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have an increase. It was just this constant roar. And they didn't even start the second song. They wave Alex down, and then they all 4 came out to the front of the stage and bowed. This is after the first song.
Wow.
I mean, people were just freaking to be in their presence. And that's what I remember, was just being freaked out that they were really right there, and that they, to me and to Mike and to so many of us that grew up, in the 70s and 80s, they were comic book superheroes.
Yeah.
They were, but watching that concert was like watching an superhero action movie in real life.
Right.
And after that concert, it was within days that Mike and I started playing together, and that we got to know the one kid in the neighborhood that played the drums. Mm-hmm. And then we started playing in bands, and we actually performed that year our first time ever in 1984 in our 7th grade Texas history class. We did a parody version of Panama. And it was shortly after that I kind of stopped playing sports and just played my guitar constantly.
Wow. Well, Eddie Van Halen had that influence, on thousands upon thousands of kids and teens and people that are, 20s and 30s. But his influence on the rock sound just really cannot be trivialized. It was huge. He changed the way a lot of rock guitar sounds.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Jimi Hendrix, of course, was like the first. But
and that's a no-brainer. Jimmy is in a class by himself.
Sure.
I have no hesitation of saying that Eddie comes second to Jimi Hendrix. Yeah. But that's not saying anything small. That's like saying, Bach comes in second to Beethoven.
That's pretty huge.
But one thing, though, that the big difference, Jimi Hendrix died when he was 27 years old.
Right.
Jimmy was active from 66 to 70.
Yeah.
Eddie's been, well, I don't know if I can use the word active, but he's been in the music business from 1978 until 2011, or coming up 2012 will be the new album. Mm-hmm. So, his reign just dwarfs Jimmy's, but you're right about the way that he changed the sound, because he did his own amplifier modifications. He built his own guitar from scratch.
Right.
That's just an amazing thing for someone to do that never had any training in that.
Yeah.
He figured all that stuff out by himself. And I even remember watching some random video of some old friends of theirs that made this little made some kind of small level documentary. It was unofficial and unauthorized, but one of the guys in that just said, what would take you or me years to understand, or to have to go to school for, Eddie could get that in a snap.
Yeah, he's got that spark of genius, no doubt.
Exactly.
No doubt. In case you're just tuning in, I'm talking to Kevin Dodds, local guitarist, who has just published a book called Edward Van Halen, a definitive biography, and you make no bones about the fact that you worship at the feet of Eddie Van Halen, but you don't sugarcoat, the ugly parts too. And there were definitely a lot of those moments, particularly in his later years when the addiction just pretty much got the best of him.
Yeah, the last thing, there were two things that I did not want to do, and one was write a fluff piece,
right? And
the other one was I did not want to write just a facts only, very antiseptic. On January 26th, he did this, blah, 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 blah. So I injected my own personal experiences into this book. And, and that's, I did that for a reason, because I'm not writing about something that I didn't see or experience. I'm not a presidential scholar writing a book on McKinley. I saw Eddie Van Halen with my own eyes. My brother met the man,
right?
And I've seen them in concert, a number of times, not as many times as other bands because they've been inactive. I had to cover the warts and all parts, and it absolutely is ugly. I got an email from a guy who said, I loved it, I couldn't put it down, and there were parts that made me just want to look away. And
some of it was hard to watch.
Yeah, it's hard to read, and some of the parts in the book that cover the ugly times or those any number of very ugly public episodes,
right?
You can watch on YouTube, and
makes you cringe though.
Yeah, it's not pleasant.
But it was what was there, is what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, when that's his only public appearance that he made was at the NAMM convention in 2003, and he showed up completely wasted. Yeah, and practically talking nonsense and stuff. Another author that wrote a book on the band Van Halen said that people's reaction to that was a mix of anger and pity. And to me it just kind of was like, oh God, I remember seeing some of those, and then there's that infamous picture of him where his teeth are brown and everything, before he went public about his explanation for what happened to his teeth, and before Sammy Hagar's autobiography, where he actually detailed a little bit of what happened to Eddie's teeth, when you took one look at it, you thought crystal meth, because we had been seeing all those TV ads and things, that showed the before and after of crystal meth users, and they always had the rotting, decayed brown teeth. Right. And so everyone just jumped to this conclusion: Eddie's doing crystal meth. And I was afraid that the next bit of news I was going to get was I was going to wake up one morning and, Edward Van Halen dead at 48 or 49 or 50 or whatever. He was
looking like death warmed over.
Yeah, and in fact, Valerie Bertinelli herself said that she was afraid that two of his habits were going to be the death of him. Right.
But really what got his teeth was drinking wine constantly.
Yep. Smoking too. Chain smoking. Yeah. But it was really that drinking the red wine straight out of the bottle. That just became like, to him, that bottle of wine was like a bottle of beer, And, Sammy Hagar one time said to him, Ed, why don't you drink it out of a glass? And he just raised up the bottle and said, it's already in a glass. So that's what happened to his teeth. And Sammy Hagar's book is where a little bit more information was shed on his teeth. Yeah. And Sammy Hagar said that Eddie told him he yanked some of his own teeth with pliers. Oh, God. He said this tooth was bugging me, so I just yanked it. Oh my God. And then Eddie eventually went on radio, and he did say he did say that he didn't do crystal meth. You know, people were saying that he did crystal meth, and he actually had kind of a good sense of humor about it. But you know, and the truth is, he wasn't doing crystal meth.
No,
he just let his hygiene and you know, even Sammy Hagar described how he let his house go. You know,
he had a nice house.
Yeah, and it's nice again. You know, it's very nice now. But
just the depths of addiction.
Yeah, that's exactly. You know, that's just what happens to addicts. They just they let everything go. Yeah. Everything's focused on you know, getting drunk or getting stoned or getting high or whatever.
Yeah. Well, he was thankfully able to overcome. Yeah. After several tries. It sure didn't take the first time. I mean, he started his first stint in rehab was like back in the 80s, right?
Yeah, in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think if you counted, I think he's been in and out maybe 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
But you know, the last one was right in the middle of their reunion tour, which was just terrible. You know, because they had been doing so great, and who knows what it is? I don't know. I can only speculate, but something going on that tour made him want to start drinking.
Yeah.
Again, whether it was, you know, the habits of being on the road, you know, maybe he's got that stage fright, you know, maybe it's just something he just took a sip of one night and then he was right back on it.
Right.
But his son wouldn't put up with it. And one night Ed came out drunk in Florida and his son told him, that's it. And so he went back, and as far as I know, and as far as you know, all reports go, and as far as any interviews and video of him that I've seen, he has been clean since 2008. So that's 3 full years, over 3.5 years. And he even said so. He said, I don't know, a couple years ago, maybe 2 years last year, he was on the Spike TV awards show, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
But anyways, Robert Downey Jr. gave him the very first ever Guitar God Award or whatever.
Well deserved.
And it was 2009. It was 2009, and it was like June of 2009. And so he said during his acceptance speech, "I've been clean for a year now." So that would put it in June 2008, unless he's, you know, fudging by a couple of months, because the tour resumed in April of 2008, and they were just. In April and May of 2008, you can go on YouTube. Van Halen was at their absolute very best. I mean, if some of the shows, especially if anybody listening, if you want to look up Van Halen 2008 Reno or Las Vegas,
those were
for whatever reason, they were absolutely on fire. And another one too was their very last show they played of the tour was Toronto. The version of Hot for Teacher in Toronto in 2008 is as good and sublime and perfect as a rock performance could possibly get.
I'm writing this down.
It's
2008 tour,
Toronto, Hot for Teacher.
And also you said Reno?
Yeah, and Reno and Vegas. Pretty much anything April or May of 2008, that tour. I mean, you watch it, you tell me. I mean, you be the judge, but I'm telling you, I've already seen it, and I promise you, it's they were at the peak of their game, and that's the way the tour ended. You know, and it's been 3 long years now. Yeah. But you know, right around the corner, it's coming.
That's an official word, or nothing's official with that band.
Essentially, it is official. There hasn't been that announcement that the single's going to drop on.
Right.
You know, the rumor is January 10th. That right now, that's the rumor is January 10th, and that the album release will be in March.
Great.
But you know, they haven't announced it yet. But they did the other day just announce that they signed to Interscope Records.
Well, Kevin, it's been really cool talking with you tonight, and I could keep going because it's an amazing story.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much, Loris, for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Let's give away another copy of the book, Edward Van Halen, A Definitive Biography, written by Austin's Kevin Dodds. We'll take caller 5 this time, 973-8300, and he'll autograph it for you, too. Kevin Dodds, he's written a book called Edward Van Halen, A Definitive Biography. Great, interesting book. It's a really fast read. It's definitely a page-turner. Highly recommended. Edward Van Halen, A Definitive Biography by Kevin Dodds. And congratulations to Tommy, who won a free copy from Local X on KLBJ.